Alright, we're going to be covering liquidity. I forgot to mention these three, so this will be a separate video called Liquidity Part 3. We're going to be covering data wicks, highs and lows, new week opening gap, and we'll be covering devil's mark. So those are the three types of liquidity I haven't covered. So let's cover data wicks and data lows. Right, so a data wick is going to be the highest probability high and low created in the market. So it's a very strong, prominent draw on liquidity that is more likely than not going to be targeted. Typically, the 5:30 a.m. wick is going to work the best when it comes to data wicks and highs, but any red folder news wick that looks abnormal is going to serve as a magnet in price. Here, for example, we had news at 5:30 a.m. So what I'm going to do is look for the 5:30 a.m. candle, and you're going to want to go to the 1 minute to find it. But you can see here at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, we had this abnormal wick. This would be a data wick. So you would mark it as data wick. So you would mark it as a data wick, and then you would stack your other confluences around there. For example, we have this 15-minute gap. So price has reason to target that data wick above. You can see price target that wick. So this serves as a really strong draw on liquidity. You can see from market open, which was here at 6:30, what happened was we ended up delivering towards that data wick. So the data wick is going to be any news wick during red folders. If you guys watched the intro to trading view video, you know that to see these news events, you have to go to Forex Factory. It's going to be any red folder news. So click this little green icon here and make sure you only have the red folders applied. So it's as simple as that to understand. It's an abnormal wick being created at the news event. So you would mark it like that, data wick here at 5:30 a.m. In this example, right, on Friday, June 5th at 5:30 a.m., we're going to have red folder news again. So if there is an abnormal wick, we will mark that data wick. One thing to take away from this is that it's a magnet in price. So more likely than not, price will return to that wick. All right, now we'll be covering new week opening gap. New week opening gap is going to be the gap where price closes on Friday. So you can see here on the bottom of my screen, this is Friday. So it's where price closes on Friday and reopens on Monday. It typically leaves this large gap behind, and this would be marked as new week opening gap. So this also serves as a draw on liquidity or as a support and resistance area. And during the PM session, we sort of just chopped around and made our way back up to new week opening gap. Why? Because this also serves as a draw on liquidity. It's a prominent draw, so more likely than not, price will return to new week opening gap. And you guys can see here, after it taps into new week opening gap, we then get a reaction from there. Yeah, it's pretty simple to understand. It's just your new week opening gap where price closes on Friday and then opens up on Monday. It always leaves a new week opening gap. Alright, we'll be covering the devil's mark and how that's a draw on liquidity that we use. So essentially what that is if you understand the opening prices and the closing prices of the candles, then you know when the 4-hour candle opens bullish, what it does is it opens, manipulates lower, puts in the bottom wick of the candle, and then expands higher, and then rejects, and then closes the top wick of the candle. So a devil's mark is when we don't manipulate lower, and we leave no wick on the 4-hour candle. Instead, price expands higher, puts in the rejection wick. What can we expect price to do? Reject, and then come back to put in that bottom wick of the 4-hour candle. Essentially what that is on the smaller time frame is, let's say the 4-hour candle opens, but we never manipulate lower. We never put in that bottom wick. Instead, what price does, it chops around, generates liquidity, trades away from this liquidity, and what can we expect price to have to do? Come back and take out these draws while simultaneously putting in that bottom wick, that 4-hour candle, and then delivering higher. That is essentially what the devil's wick is, or the devil's mark is what they call it, and that can be used as a draw on liquidity, and you would mark it just like this. That is going to be the opening price of the 4-hour candle, either the 7 a.m. candle, 11 a.m. candle, whichever candle you guys are trading during that session. For example, let's say the 4-hour candle opened here, and you guys can see we actually manipulate, create the bottom wick here, and then we start to generate price higher. That is what a normal 4-hour candle looks like, but there will be times where instead of manipulating lower, we instead generate liquidity and price stays above opening price here. We trade away from this accumulation of liquidity, and then price later returns using this opening price as a draw on liquidity. That is the devil's mark. So it's very rare that a 4-hour candle does not put in a bottom wick or a top wick. That is why the devil's mark is such a good draw on liquidity. As you guys can see to the left, almost every 4-hour candle has a bottom and top wick. So it's very rare for a 4-hour candle to not have a bottom and top wick. So internally, you can use that to your advantage. And when there isn't a wick, you guys can target that. So those are the 3 draws on liquidity, and I hope that proves useful.